From the world of AV control, programming, and automation with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hi, James. It's great to be with you again.
Oh, hi, Steve. It's great being back. Enjoy our catch up as we talk.
Yeah, it's just been a good thing. I think we're starting to get into a groove, and it's great that we're hearing from some of our listeners. So I know that there's someone in particular they wanted to give a shout out to, but we really enjoy getting these types of comments, and we're really seeing the feedback that we're hoping for.
Yeah, totally. 100% agreed. And all the feedback we're getting across all our social media is great. We're getting comments and on our YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. It's great. And Mark reached out after we posted in one of the Facebook groups. I'm actually pulling up the group now. So I get the title correctly. But it was Mark Stilley. I apologize if I butchers that last name. And the group is Crestron and AMX programmers. So he took a listen and we appreciate, and he provided some feedback, which was very positive. So thank you, Mark, for listening. And again, reach out, guys, if you want to provide Steve and myself some topics to discuss.
I think that's a good starting point too for today. And one of the things that we found is by reaching out to some of these groups and making connections and being able to not only share this show, but to be able to network with others is really a powerful thing. And I think that that's something that programmers aren't always adept to doing, because a lot of programmers tend to be introverted. They tend to be, and I am, and they tend to be more quiet, more protective, and I think that by nature, technical people they kind of like to keep things closer to the vest. But I think, as you and I have discussed, and we commonly use, I almost feel like the name of our show should be Man or Woman on an Island. That you really can't grow and you can't find out how to improve yourselves by being alone and just taking on that responsibility to better your skills and gather your informational knowledge by yourself. You really need interaction, and I think the idea of being able to connect with other people is really critical.
100%. Connecting with other people is, I was actually thinking about this a couple months ago. With all, I mean, we know March is Women's History Month, February is Black History Month. And with those 2 months coming across, I really was thinking about diversity and inclusion, and to bring this into what you were talking about, Steve, is communicating with people is, think about like if you're having a coloring book with a sheet of paper. If you're by yourself, you're the only crown in the box. You got a picture, but it's kind of blah. As you add more crowns or more ideas and more voices, the picture takes a new life. Same image, but now it has a new life. And that's how I kind of look at it is, yes, you can get it away doing it yourself, but you're not as colorful or as vibrant as if you have multiple people who could give you ideas and attribute to the overall picture.
That's, I think, something that we're all learning, and I think that's a really good point. And it also comes down to overcoming bias and overcoming just a one track mind, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that comes to mind for me too is that we all have our own experiences that define us, and that a lot of times we use to base decision making, and that we use to determine how we approach problems and we provide solutions, and being only exposed to one type of an audience and one type of a solution really makes you biased, and you think that every solution or every client or every need comes back to that same persona, let's say, or comes back to that same approach. uh, but having engaging with other people uh, allows you to be able to hear how different the different minds work, different people approach different types of problems. And quite honestly, one of the things that I think in our world is that you need to be able to find all the little hidden gems and nuggets that you learn by being in the field, and by living by doing the work that we do. And programmers, it's important to be able to exchange that information, or know that somebody once told me that they had a problem similar, and let me go ask them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we see that in almost any other field. So why should programming be any different? Um, we should really connect and help each other, share ideas. Um, Too often, I've heard in the past of, well, job security. I'm not giving you my code, but it's not that we are stealing other people's code. We are learning from other people and having that community and building. And so if you're connecting and working together, like Steve, you might have a really great understanding of, let's say, controlling a device via serial port, where someone like me might have a better understanding of controlling it via IP. So if you're running into a device that you need control IP, it might be new to you. So you might leverage my expertise, vice versa. If, like, I had to control something serial, again, this is all hypothetical because I know Steve is very talented of all areas. But instead of being limited, almost like a brand saying, like, if you only know one brand, that's all you're going to program. Um, you can branch out and find the best solution instead of being painted into a box. I kind of gave a long-winded answer that kind of went in circles. Sorry about that.
But I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because you you base you base your solutions on what you know, and you're not really able to think outside of that box because you don't really know what the other options can be. And now, and the other side of it is that you get comfortable, so you're going to continue to reuse what you know works, but you may but that may uh, cause you to have a blind spot and not realize that there are better solutions out there, and potentially something that can save time, save money, or be better suited for your need. And it comes down to just knowing that it exists and other people have had success with it.
Yeah, that definitely could be helpful. Yeah, 100% agree with that. Knowing that it's out there, because again, we only know what we know. Um, and just like, I forget who says it, but there's a quote that you can only speak what you know, but you listen to things you don't know. And or something like that. Forget exactly how it is. And it's talking about listening, making sure, because you can only reply and speak of what you do know until you learn new things. And kind of like programming is, as long as we don't know the new techniques or a new way of doing something, we're going to keep doing it the same way. And I look at it from the IT side, because I've said this a couple people who come out and goes, well, we always did it this way. Just because you always did it this way doesn't mean it's the right way to do it.
I think that is words to remember. Uh, one thing to touch on too is that, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, is that when you're only working on one type of system or in one type of an environment, you kind of get a little bit caught in your tendencies, or you think that that's the only approach to a solution. And for example, you have a lot of experience in the education world, but if you were to be put into a situation where you were doing a corporate boardroom, or you were doing maybe a live production or something of that nature, there would be different parameters that you'd have to consider, different user needs and tendencies. And we talked about this a little bit in a past show, but it's important to be able to talk to the people that know those users and know how to know what they need, know what they want, and be able to give you that insight and those tips. It's
Yeah, that is great there. Like you say, I know higher education, like even like you say, if you put me right now into a live event or even like a courtroom or a CEO boardroom, I'm going to be a fish out of water. Um, Not saying that I couldn't handle it, not saying you couldn't handle being thrown in higher education. It's just a different element and you stumble. But why would we need to stumble if we can leverage people we can who been there? Um, so like we have the higher ed community, we can help each other. If you are experiencing it coming in, or even one of our listeners might be someone who does live sound all the time, and they're going to have that expertise that someone like me in higher ed could leverage if I ever had to do a live event. Um, and vice versa, if that person ever gets thrown into higher education, now they have someone they can leverage saying, hey, this is a new world for us. Um, some pointers and stuff. So building that community, because knowing what you don't know is hard. So it's branch out, reach out, and learn.
so being that we're trying to serve that community, and this is one of those questions that will likely be asked of us, what are some tips or advice you can give people that are saying, yes, I need this?
Reach out. That's the biggest thing is um, find that community. Like there is the Facebook groups out there. I think Steve and I will add them to the show notes for this one. There's Facebook groups out there. There's LinkedIn groups out there. Um, and then if you can't find one, start one. That's what I did with the higher ed Slack group. I was communicating with higher education people on Twitter, and I'm like, it'd be nice to have a central location where I can just talk to these folks without, where we can bounce ideas off of without outside interference. So I started the Slack group, and it started with 20 people. And I think now I'm almost 160 some odd members. Let's see. Yeah, 142 members right now across the globe of just higher education members. Some are programmers. So it's building that community. Just like this here, Steve and I, we got together because we felt there was a need to reach out and build this community. So you don't find one, start one, but get out there and connect with people.
That was what I was going to add, is that a lot of times we think of AV events as being something for salespeople, and or being something for people that are looking to build relationships and to develop business, let's say. But they're not necessarily. You can very easily make connections with other people in your role. I think that trade shows are looking to support that more. Some of the organizations like Avixa have councils now that are looking to support that. I think that there's a lot more people connecting online on Twitter, and I think just I encourage people just to get out because if it wasn't for stuff like that, we wouldn't have met. And there's and I think that those are just missed opportunities. So as much as it's not natural, and as much as it may not be something that programmers consider doing, they have to socialize a little bit, and it'll go a long way. The other thing that I'll add too is that just find some people that you can trust, and that would be willing to work with you either on a mentor basis, or if you can form some type of a team that doesn't cross competitive lines. There's great ways to learn, because I even see it on my team that everybody on my team respects each other, and there's no rivalry or competition. Everybody's looking to help each other learn, and they all bring different things to the table. And we try to keep the silos from happening.
No,
So
that's
I think that's a good way for us to wrap for today, and I hope that we can continue this conversation. I'd like to hear if there's anybody that wants to chime in, and if they have some suggestions, and even some ways that we can learn and connect with you. Please reach out. James, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing?
uh easiest way to get a hold of me is like how Steve and I met is on Twitter. My handle is at AV underscore James King. I'm on LinkedIn as James King. Also, I write monthly articles for the higher education digital magazine, which is higheredav.com. I do a column called IT and AV, so definitely check that one out as well.
And for me, I could be found on most social platforms at Steve Greenblatt, and I'd really like to connect. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well as Twitter, and I hope to hear from everyone out there. And also do us a favor and leave us a rating review. We're on several platforms now: YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and we'd like to see what you find to be most useful, and we'd like to hear what you think of what we're doing. So look forward to hearing, and that's all we have for Ask the Programmer.